welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Mikkel. I am a digital nomad and basically have been traveling for the past 2 years, all during COVID, which kind of brings me to my topic today. Today, I'm going to be sharing my experience, my tips, and kind of the best advice I have if you are thinking about traveling and haven't really done any traveling since coronavirus. So since COVID, I have done 8 countries and 80 cities. My traveling has been in Mexico, Europe, and the United States. So everything that I'm talking about, my experience, everything is relevant to those places. So I can't really speak to other places and what it's like there, but it's what it is like in either Europe, the United States, or Mexico. So first thing that you're gonna wanna do if you are thinking about traveling is you're gonna want to register through the embassy. So for the US Embassy, when I decided I was going to go to Peru, happened to be the worst time. I was in Peru the 3rd week of March, which basically COVID was royally hitting the fan. I had registered, letting the US Embassy know that I was going to be there. Now, while I was there, I received an email from them that was basically saying that the border could close without warning. So I did decide at that moment I was going to leave the country. 10 hours later, the borders completely closed, no one in, no one out. So registering through your embassy and letting them know where you're gonna be is gonna be really helpful if, God forbid, another serious lockdown happens or the borders close, and it's just going to keep them in the loop and just keep you in the loop, because if I wouldn't have gotten that email, who knows what would have happened. Now, the other thing to take note of is because COVID is constantly changing, I don't really like to book anything super far in advance. If you can, I would say hold off to booking things a month to 2 weeks in advance. And with that being said, I wouldn't book a bunch of excursions, festivals, or things to do until you actually get there. Last year, I made the mistake of, I was planning to go to a music festival in Tulum to bring in 2021 and had bought the festival on my credit card. Now, about 2 days before the festival, it was canceled, and basically the company was like, we're not giving refunds. And if I wouldn't have booked it on my credit card, I would have been out all of that money. So if you do want to book things and you're super eager, book it with a credit card so that you have some type of protection. And I was actually, like I said, able to get the money back from my credit card company. Now, since the COVID restrictions are constantly changing, I've realized in these different places, you never really know what you're walking into. For example, this summer I was in Czech Republic. Before I got there, me and my friend read that we wouldn't even be able to buy alcohol in public, that it was so strict, like you can't buy any alcohol. We show up, you don't even need a mask, and the nightclubs were open. So it was like totally just like wrong information. And like this was information that we were reading online, that was on embassy websites. And so it's really hard to tell until you get somewhere what exactly the restrictions are going to look like once you're inside. A way to kind of get a feel for them, I do recommend joining any Facebook groups for places that you're going. Usually for me, if I'm going to Mexico, I'll be joining like digital nomad groups that are in the cities that I'm targeting, or expat groups, or I even love joining like all girl groups for cities. There's a lot of those, but it's just a good way to A, know people that are already there, but B, get an idea of what you're walking into. So a lot of times with these groups, once I am accepted, I will go ahead and introduce myself like, hey, I'm going to be visiting, coming XYZ, what can I expect? These groups also have been a lot of help if you are needing to find COVID testing and stuff like that. With so many places having so many different restrictions, and a lot of them you have to COVID test in and out. These have been really helpful for finding the best place to get COVID tests. Now, with that being said, I think before I started like really traveling during COVID and COVID was happening, it seemed overwhelming to me to have to get so many tests, but I've actually found it's quite easier than it seems. And over the past 2 years, I have taken about 20 coronavirus tests, and luckily everything has worked out super well, and I haven't been anywhere where I ran into a serious issue of getting a test. Now, because things are ever changing, you should literally be checking the website, the embassy, basically the embassy website for the country that you're going to up until the day before, because things can change so quickly. And like, if you're not constantly checking, you could end up getting denied or not getting into somewhere. Now, those are just kind of the biggest tips that I have for traveling during COVID. Now I want to talk about the things that I love about traveling during COVID. First off, there's not as many people traveling as there used to be. So this means that you can go to places and view them in more of an intimate setting. I was lucky enough to be in Dubrovnik when there was less than 100 people in the city. It was so beautiful and such a different experience being there with less than 100 versus 12,000 a day, which is usually what's in the city. Also, I was able to be in Venice without it being super crazy. So the biggest advantage of traveling during COVID is just less people everywhere. Now, I have noticed this has played an impact into the price. So a lot of things are not at the prices that they were before COVID. Now, of course, there are one-offs and different countries have different things, but overall, accommodations have been a lot cheaper and excursions have been cheaper and they've been more intimate. So that is the biggest advantage. I've also really liked traveling during COVID because of the people that I meet. It's kind of attracts a different type of person and someone that really has a love for travel and a love for adventure. So that's been really great. Now, if you are thinking about digital nomading long-term or even traveling long-term, I do recommend that you get a power of attorney. Now, basically a power of attorney is someone that basically stands as you, essentially. For example, when I was in Peru and I was seeing so much flash before my eyes, I was like, well, what if I were to have gotten stuck and then I didn't have access to my bank account, and then what if I needed to get this or I needed to get that and I can't get back into the US? So I did go ahead and get a power of attorney. It cost me about $300, and now my sister has access to all my information, and if I were to get stuck somewhere, I could easily hit up my sister and my sister could go to a bank and access all of my money. So this is something that is really helpful if you are looking at long-term travel. I also recommend traveling with some type of insurance or using a credit card that comes with a lot of travel insurance. The Chase Sapphire Preferred is a great one and really has been helpful for me. I'm lucky I haven't really had money cancellations, but this card does have my back. Overall, if you are thinking about traveling during COVID and feel comfortable doing it, I honestly recommend it. I've had such a good experience and I've got to see things on such an intimate level that I usually would never have been able to see them. And it's just been overall great. Like I said, I have done 80 countries, 80 cities, been tested about 20 different times. I've yet to be tested positive for COVID. So if you are thinking, well, if I immediately travel, then I will get COVID, it's not necessarily true. But if you're thinking like, oh, I've already gotten COVID here, what does it matter? There's no way of really telling if you're going to get COVID from traveling or if you're going to get COVID from sitting at home. But if you feel comfortable and feel able to go out and travel, I do recommend doing it. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. If you have questions about more about my experience or anything like that, go ahead and put them in the comments. I will be watching the comments and answering, and I hope to see some of you guys out on the road soon. See ya. Bye.